Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be an absolute blast, as today we have a mad lad who goes by the name Alpha Club Y2K. Now he saw that the Community Day Shadow Accelgor only has an 8% meta win rate in the Ultra League, and it seems like he took that personally, so he is pulling out all the stops to try and find out, is it possible to actually get wins with this Pokemon? Well, today we're going to attempt to answer that question. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's go Shadow Accelgor. Not a great lead in the first match, and not a great swap either. Opponent switches into a Licky, and Shadow Accelgor is going to try and call a bait. Thankfully, just a body slam. Shadow Accelgor going for the Focus Blast. Do they respect the damage? They do not. Down goes Licky. And this might be the first documented case in human history that Shadow Accelgor actually did something in a battle. Opponent sends in a regular Typhlosion. Since it's non-shadow, that means the Thunder Punch is actually not particularly threatening. So Feraligatr is going to no shield, launch a Hydro Cannon, grab a shield, quick switch to Annihilate, unable to get the farm down before Feraligatr makes Hydro Cannon number 2. That's going to grab a shield from the opponent. Annihilate does exit with quite a lot of energy. In comes Hippowdon, and they have farmed up to a potential close combat. Are they going to full send here? Alpha shields, and unfortunately shields a bait. And this is where being the regular Hippowdon is actually a bit worse because you don't have the closing power on Scorching Sands. The opponent is going to make a potential boosted close combat, and now we will see the final shield. They're going to go straight for it. In comes the Typhlosion farming up, and there is the perfect switch out onto Shadow Accelgor. Shadow Accelgor gets absolutely destroyed by that Blast Burn, but that's what was needed. Preserve Hippowdon. Scorching Sands picks up the KO. In comes Annihilate, and Annihilate is low enough that a resisted Weather Ball Rock should be enough to knock out here. Weather Ball Rock into Annihilate, but looks like the opponent may have force closed their app, and I cannot blame them. If I lost to a Shadow Accelgor, I would be absolutely despondent. We move to the next match, now leading into Primeape. Primeape staying in, firing off energy. Not only does Shadow Accelgor have no bulk, but it also has very bad pacing, which is incredible considering Water Shuriken's an unbelievably good move, but unfortunately, Energy Ball, the Calm Day move, and Focus Blast are both really expensive. It really would have preferred to get a cheaper charge move, and now, if this Primeape double shields, this Primeape could completely run away with the game. But they actually let it go. That is incredibly good. In comes Talonflame, answered with Hippowdon. Hippowdon gonna fire off the Weather Ball Rock. This will not pick up the one-hit KO, as it's the Ultra League and things are very bulky here. Talonflame could potentially go for the Brave Bird. Will they go for it? No, they go for a Flame Charge, and that is very okay for Hippowdon. Hippowdon shrugs off that damage, fires off the Weather Ball Rock, and is going to grab the shield. And I think at this point, you can probably just let this go and let 1-0 shield Shadow Feraligatr take us home. As if anything is going to sweep here, high likelihood it's going to be Shadow Feraligatr, and the opponent resigns without even revealing the third. Shadow Accelgor versus Poliwrath. There's no way this is a good matchup. The only hope is that for some reason, the opponent has no idea what Shadow Accelgor has. Accelgor goes for the Energy Ball. They shield, and I think that might just be instant game over here. We are going to see a shield from Shadow Accelgor. Opponent switches out of a good matchup, and they send in Skeledirge. So, some pretty fortunate happenstance here that the opponent switched out, as they could have forced the issue with the Poliwrath. I know Poliwrath has very poor pacing since the counter nerf, but I still think it would have been very problematic. Gonna fire off the Weather Ball. Opponent goes for the no shield, and now gonna go for Weather Ball number 2. This is gonna pick up the knockout, but this is just gonna feed energy. I was gonna say to the Poliwrath, but they send in their final Pokemon, which is going to be a non-Shadow Feraligatr. Weather Ball not gonna do much. There's the Poliwrath right on cue, and Accelgor banked energy from earlier, and this is the best chance of getting rid of this Pokemon. Energy Ball, opponent lets it go, snipe down with Feraligatr, and all they had to do was shield, but they did not respect the Accelgor. They are running Crunch, but it's not going to matter. They saw the Energy Ball earlier. It was thrown. They shielded it, but I guess they're trying to trust in Gator to sweep, and therefore Alligator is just not going to be able to bring home the win here. I like the shield in the mirror because you really don't want to trust Shadow Accelgor to try and fast move down anything. So oh my goodness, we actually see the switch out. Can Accelgor get the farm down? Of course it can't. Shadow Accelgor, you disappoint me. Oh my goodness, the game's still a win, which is awesome. But Shadow Accelgor is getting absolutely carried. Accelgor versus Typhlosion. We're going to see the save switch to a Powdon. Going to be answered with a Shadow for Alligator. And Shadow for Alligator, very nice timing here by the Hippowdon, throwing the Scorching Sands right before for Alligator makes the Hydro. We do actually see the attack drop come through. That's very nice. That may allow Hippowdon to actually survive the Hydro Cannon. Weather Ball Rock is going to grab the shield. Hippowdon with the confident no shield. Is this going to be enough to knock out? No. Hippowdon withstands the damage, gets to the Weather Ball. That Scorching Sands debuff paying massive dividends as Hippowdon is able to win the 1-0s. In comes Typhlosion. Typhlosion exits with energy. In comes for Alligator, but the opponent throws on alignment, and that is going to completely flip this matchup. Thunder Punch, massive damage in the back is Corviknight, but Corviknight sand attack is resisted. Did we actually find a matchup where Accelgor genuinely does well? I believe Corviknight is one of the 3 2-shield wins that this Pokemon has, because Corviknight just can't really damage it. Going for the Focus Blast. That rocks the Corviknight. Corviknight able to make one final charge attack. Shadow Accelgor with the no shield. Sky Attack picks up the KO. And now it's just the Feraligatr show. Feraligatr up energy. Much too deadly for the opponent. Hydro Cannon is shielded. They're still playing it out. But there is just way too much Feraligatr energy loaded and ready to go. Hydro Cannon KOs. That's game over. We move to the next game, Shadow Accelgor versus Steelix. This is an absolutely atrocious lead. Water Shuriken hitting for super effective damage. It sure does not look it. This is actually a Dragon Tail Steelix. Most Steelix are going to be on Thunderfang, but Dragon Tail does still have some play if you're looking to beat mons like Zygarde and Guzzlord. Here the opponent does not shield. Focus Blast nearly picks up the one-hit KO. A snipe with Hippowdon, and out comes Confusion Cresselia. Is this going to be the triple bulk team with Dragon Breath Giratina in the back? That is a pretty popular team. Scorching Sands, very clutch with the debuffs in these sets. Applying that debuff, and now Grass Knot just does nothing, and there it is. This is what I guess is commonly referred to as the triple bulk team. The goal is just to try and out-bulk your opponents at all costs. You have a lot of fast move pressure in the back, and all 3 of your Pokemon can take a ton of hits. Dragon Claw picks up the KO. Now Shadow Feraligatr hits the field. Feraligatr going to start using shields. As Dragon Claw, it's not particularly threatening, but the Dragon Breaths add up a lot over time. We're now going to see a beautiful sack swap onto the Shadow Accelgor. The best use for Accelgor is to be completely thrown away, but now a bit of concern. Will the opponent be able to get a fast move farm down here? We see the shield on the Hydro Cannon. Feraligatr has a ton of energy, but it's rapidly running out of HP. We're going to see the double shield from the Cresselia. Feraligatr very, very low, throwing in the middle of the confusion. This confusion will not register. The opponent survives with a fraction of health remaining, and they're going to be able to grab the shield. Unfortunately, I think the Giratina, it just is too healthy, and the triple bulk team lives up to its name as it's able to outbulk this team and take the win. Moving to the next match, Shadow Accelgor versus Shadow Donphan. Shadow Donphan cleanly wins the 2 straight Trailblaze, but the opponent does not know it. Instead, they switch out. And with the Shadow Donphan lead, you're almost always trying to stay in, win alignment, because with favorable alignment, you're usually running a very alignment-dependent backline. But the opponent switches out, which is a pretty big error, and now they're forced to give up quite a few shields. They give up the first, they're forced to give up the second as well, so they will win switch, but they've had to give up a ton of resources to do so, and they won't even win switch. They no shield the miscount. It's a Primarina in the back. But now the question is, where does Accelgor go? I don't think Accelgor is really going to have a tremendous amount of play here unless the opponent shields the Primarina. The opponent is going to send in the Donphan. Accelgor is just getting torn to shreds by these mud slaps. Mud Slap allegedly resisted here, but I have yet to see it. The opponent going for a Body Slam, not going for the Trailblaze. In this situation, boosting up their damage would be the key to victory. They end up no-shielding the Energy Ball as they try and trust in Primarina to win this game. Primarina going to have to give up the final shield as the Energy Ball comes through. Hippowdon gets to the Weather Ball Rock. That appeared to be a CMP tie, which means this game is over. They go for the Hydro Cannon. Weather Ball is clicked. And Primarina, it's just not a bulky Pokemon in the Ultra League. Weather Ball KOs, and this game will end in victory. But that game could have been very different if the opponent stayed in, played out the 2-shield, because unfortunately, 2-shield, Accelgor loses to Shadow Donphan. We've got another match queued up, and it's a terrible lead. Shadow Accelgor versus Licky Licky. The first Licky Licky just did not respect the Focus Blast and paid dearly. This Licky Licky will farm up to a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball should cleanly just KO from here. Oh, it doesn't! They live on 1 HP! Come on, please no shield this. Please, Licky Licky, they do! They get 1 hit KO'd. In comes Feraligatr. That's going to be answered with Hippowdon, but down energy, this is very uncomfortable for the Hippo. Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded up. Hippowdon going for the Scorching Sands. This matchup was a lot more comfortable last time because we saw a debuff. Scorching Sands will not debuff this time, and Hippowdon, unfortunately, is just going to have to let itself get KO'd here. Oh, it barely hangs on, able to make a Weather Ball as the final Pokemon is revealed to be Golisopod. Golisopod is going to shield, but Golisopod is very well positioned into Feraligatr. Feraligatr is completely walled. Maybe a catch can help, but even so, this very much feels like a near impossible endgame to win, unless the opponent makes a pretty severe misplay. Going to fire off Hydro Cannon, but Hydro Cannon is just not threatening to Golisopod. Golisopod able to tank that. There's an attempt at a catch. That was a really good attempt, but Golisopod in the back, just way too good at shutting down Feraligatr. We see a very familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Accelgor versus Poliwrath. This is another one of those matchups that Accelgor is so bad in the 2-shield that Poliwrath can actually just win the 2s by continually spamming Icy Winds. Here our battler throws the Energy Ball instantly. They could have done one more and still outpaced and thrown on good timing. Icy Wind is going to be no-shielded. They're going to give up Switch, send in Skeledirge, and I feel like we saw this exact team before. I believe it was Feraligatr in the back in that previous match. Hippowdon farming up quite a bit, and we are going to see the Weather Ball bait. I would prefer to see a full send, and that's why, because the opponent does have the ability to call it. Weather Ball number 2 fired at the Skeledirge. Skeledirge decides to let itself go, and they just get KO'd. They are down a shield. In the back is going to be a non-Shadow Feraligatr. Feraligatr unable to get the farm down before Scorching Sands is reached. That does significant damage, and now the Shadow Feraligatr is very well positioned. We do see an attempt at a catch. It's unsuccessful, but the opponent still does end up throwing energy, and now we see the shield from Accelgor as it does have the Energy Ball. Firing the Energy Ball at this Feraligatr. Feraligatr is going to shield, and it's a CMP tie, a massive misplay from the opponent. Had they just farmed down, they potentially could have been in a better position. Granted, Poliwrath still does amazingly into Feraligatr, but Feraligatr is up energy and up a shield, and in this situation, Poliwrath is not going to emerge victorious. They can spam out Icy Winds, they can lower Feraligatr's attack, but they are just delaying the inevitable at this point. Debuffed Hydro connects, getting them very low. Feraligatr farms down, exits with energy, and now we'll get to farm to the back-to-back Hydros. This is debuffed. I believe it should be enough to KO here. Oh, it wasn't! The opponent, being the non-Shadow, survives on a fraction of HP, but the opponent loses the cap tie, and that game will end in a win. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, Shadow Accelgor versus Tentacruel. This is a loss in all even shields for our good friend Accelgor. We now see an aggressive pivot into Shadow Feraligatr, and I honestly like this. Force the Tentacruel to waste their energy. The Tentacruel's low enough where you can actually deal with it with the Feraligatr. Shadow Hydro Cannon, even when resisted, adds up. That actually forces a shield from the Tentacruel, and Alpha more than content to just let this Scald connect. He thinks he can get to another move, and he was dead right. Making it to Hydro number 2, Tentacruel forced to just get KO'd, and now Drapion hits the field of play. Hippowdon has the type advantage, but if it's not careful, it could easily get overrun by a deluge of Aqua Tails. Aqua Tail number 1 is going to connect. Hippowdon is playing to the CMP tie, and we are going to see a shield on Aqua Tail number 2. No baits here from the Hippo, just going straight for the Scorching Sands at the Drapion. Drapion is going to commit the shield, and we do not see any potential attack falls come through. The shield from Hippowdon, and that's going to be all shields down for all competitors. Opponent is going to switch out and make a catch onto Golurk. That's a great catch from the opponent. Hippowdon farming up a ton of energy. There's a switch and a sack swap, sending in the Shadow Accelgor to get absolutely torn to shreds by a Shadow Punch. Hippowdon farming up as much as it can, going for the Scorching Sands. Golurk was on the 3 cycle, so that is when the move has to be thrown. In comes Drapion, going for the Weather Ball. Weather Ball has to be enough to knock out here, but it's not. Drapion hangs on, and unfortunately, this game will end in defeat. Hopping to the final match, Shadow Accelgor versus Alolan Sandslash. Honestly, an Ice Punch probably comes real close to knocking out here. Accelgor lets it through. The Ice Punch nearly takes it to the red. There's a safe switch into Skeledirge, and Skeledirge is now going to be answered with Hippowdon. Hippowdon very comfortable letting Skeledirge throw whatever it wants to. There's a Shadow Ball, and that's going to inflict some serious damage. Going for the Scorching Sands, no baits here, looking to punish an O-Shield. Scorching Sands is going to land, but unfortunately that's just not enough to KO. Skeledirge survives, Disarming Voice will pick up the knockout, but it's never a bad time to get Shadow Feraligatr a small energy head start. In the back is a forgotten meta Pokemon from Meta's past. It's going to be a Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini used to be quite good at preventing people from running Fire plus Dark cores, but now that Tapu Fini has fallen out of the meta, it's a lot easier to run those cores. The opponent is going to Surf bait, no Nature's Madness. Instead, they're opting for the cheaper pacing on Surf. Feraligatr going for the Hydro Cannon. This will not knock out, but it will get the opponent low. They are trying to make another move, and they just do. Tapu Fini, fractional HP. They only got the Surf. They did not make the Nature's Madness. In comes Alolan Sandslash, and there is so much energy available on this Feraligatr. Feraligatr, Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded. It's a CMP tie, but considering there's still a Hydro Cannon loaded, you absolutely have to shield. And for the opponent, the moment they end up shielding a Hydro Cannon, it's all over for them, because I believe Accelgor banked a Focus Blast. They shield, and what a fitting end. One of the worst Pokemon, one of the worst community days Niantic has ever done, but Shadow Accelgor is able to take the win. And now, final thoughts. Do not use Accelgor. It is truly, truly terrible. It really needed a bait move. Low-key, part of me thinks that maybe they meant to give Razor Shell to Accelgor and Energy Ball to Escavalier, and then they just messed it up because, I mean, from the lower evolutions, they look like they evolve into the other one. That's probably not the case, but that's my own little theory, because Accelgor would have liked a really cheap bait move, so that way, at the very least, it would have been a very inconsistent Pokemon, but you at least could have done bait with Razor Shell, land Focus Blast shenanigans, whereas Energy Ball really doesn't do anything for it. So normally, I try and give a review, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now, Accelgor is terrible. Big shout out to Alpha for managing to get even a single win with this Pokemon, because Accelgor is, oh my goodness, it is not good. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying content like this, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.